Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. Bit of a heavy one today.
Does this need to come with a warning?
Probably.
Probably. We're talking about euthanasia. We need you to know where to send hate mail because you're probably going to want to do that. The best way to do that is to jump on the Discord server. And then you can just spam me with hate mail and the robot that controls it will just ban you.
Is that what you call me these days? The robot?
No, there's a robot, Meep.
Really?
Yeah, Meep looks after our Discord.
Okay, thanks, Meep.
Yeah, thanks, Meep.
Clearly, I'm Discord savvy. Yeah, look, it's heavy, but I've said in other episodes, this is the point of this podcast.
We do heavy stuff.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that nothing is taboo here, and we risk ostracization and we risk disagreement, and I'll say I don't know if I don't know on this one because I think there's going to be a bit of that from me here today.
I can't wait to be cancelled by wokeness.
If you haven't yet,
yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it.
You're playing with house money.
Yeah, I don't really understand what's going to happen when I get cancelled. Like, do I have to go live somewhere else? But I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Right. Look, let's just do a quick sharing question to break the ice. Best compliment you have ever received?
You look fly in that jacket.
Literally? Is that what you wanted to receive or you've actually received?
Yeah, I was in H&M in Scottsdale and I was trying on I still own the jacket. It's an incredible jacket. And this dude walks past me and he goes, "Man, you look fly in that jacket." And I bought it immediately. And I went home and I told my wife, she's like, they employ people to say that? I was like, so I had the greatest compliment of all time followed by the most scathing criticism of compliment.
But you still bought the jacket.
I still bought the jacket. I love that jacket.
Yeah.
Anyway, what about you?
Oh, I think it's the best compliment I've ever received. It's a bit of a backhanded one, but my mentor said to me once, one of the challenges that I'll face in life is that I'm good at lots of different things. And so therefore I'll struggle to focus. But
is that bad?
Well, it has been a bit of an Achilles heel for me in life. But
better to be a jack of all trades than a master
of none. That's right. So that's I'm the new Aziz Ansari. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a nice compliment, but it's got another side to that coin. So
okay,
like many of these things do.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Okay. So we're talking euthanasia. You'll find out. I think you and I are going to be very different on the elephant scale for this one. I would call myself a 2. I may even be a 1. Like look, I'm pretty limited here. I've never faced a conundrum with someone I love personally, and I probably, I think I know the theoretical answers that I should give, but I don't feel like I have a very nuanced or well fleshed out theology of this. So I'm coming at it fairly conceptually and fairly idealistically, I would say.
All right.
Yep.
That's good.
How about you?
Walked through the final weeks of my father with cancer, so I have a pretty strong opinion on this.
Mm-hmm. Would you give yourself a 10?
No, because I don't have. I don't think there's going to be a robust theological articulation that someone's going to want me to have. I'm going to occupy heart space for this and just throw caution to the wind.
Okay.
And say I have I think a compassionate perspective on this.
Okay. So let's get there. Perhaps before we get there though, let's set up, I suppose, my understanding of the prevailing sentiment, conclusion, theology.
I'm just going to brighten you up. Keep going.
My understanding of or the paradigms we view this conversation with in Christian subculture. Yep. We start with a paradigm of the sanctity of life. You see that not just in the euthanasia discussion, but the abortion discussion as well.
Yes.
So there is a high view of life in the Christian ethic that is perhaps distinct or slightly increased in a Christian worldview if you believe in a creator. Therefore, his creation is very important. And therefore, any conversation of voluntary death of any kind, I suppose you get into the "you're playing God" argument. So that's probably just the first part I want to point out in the discussion.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is I would hazard a guess to say if we took a survey today, by far and away, most Christians will say euthanasia is not permissible as a Christian under any circumstance. I could be wrong, but that's what my gut tells me. I guess in by the way of theoretical or not theoretical, intellectual definitions. So this is from a Christian website that I just did a little bit of research on. So what is euthanasia? It denotes positive action by a doctor to end the life of a patient. But what I didn't realize is there's further divided into voluntary euthanasia, that is, when the person themselves requests it, and involuntary euthanasia, that is, where the decision to end a person's life is taken without their request, perhaps because of dementia or the fact that they are no longer conscious, cannot speak for themselves. So there are two substrands within the euthanasia discussion, the voluntary and the involuntary.
Yes.
We'll hear your story in a minute, but just let me say pastorally, I'm very aware that this is a sensitive issue. It is complex and it's personal. I also just want to put voice to you that off air, you have expressed multiple times that you are really not looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, Matt, if you're the body language doctor and you're watching the video of this, you can see that.
Yeah.
You can see that.
So, let me pastor you in this conversation, I suppose, and be gentle with you. But look, as much as you want to share, I think you've mentioned a little bit of what happened towards the end of your dad's life in the death episode, but perhaps run us through what you want to run us through and then share, I suppose, your reflections on this euthanasia conversation through that lens.
Yeah, listen, I kind of don't know where to start because there has been significant death in the family, right? Okay. So my grandfather, I think, was starved to death by my grandmother.
Whoa.
So there's that. I pastored my uncle in his final moments of life after he had a massive stroke and led him to the Lord. So that was the first time I've ever closed for Jesus.
Closed for Jesus.
Last person into the field
Wow.
before he goes off to see Christ. That was a really beautiful but hard moment. And then in 2016, my dad got cancer back for the second time and rapidly deteriorated. So there was probably, we got a 50-50 chance of fighting this, but he might only have 6 months to live, and 6 weeks later he was dead. And so I just started my gig on breakfast radio, and that was in July, I think I was first time on air.
Of 2016.
Yeah, and then September I got a call, late August I got a call because my parents were living up in Brisbane, I was in Sydney, and the word was Dad's going downhill. And so Dad had not particularly been good when he was going through chemo. He was gently a total asshole. And so that had major influence on my mum and on our family. He just didn't cope with it well. And listen, to anybody who's going through it, I have a real sensitivity for that. And
this was the first time he was diagnosed?
The first time and the second time.
Yeah, okay.
So what happens when someone is going through cancer and you're in a loving family is the entire family puts their life on hold to help navigate that, because everything revolves around that chemo treatment. And there's a rhythm to the chemo treatment. There's a week of treatment, a week of recovery, a week of rest. And so within that chemo treatment when there's going to be good days and bad days. If they're living at home, oftentimes they'll be isolated in their own bed with their own bathroom because you're radioactive.
Really?
And so
I knew in the moment, I didn't realize you kept that radioactivity going into the home environment.
So you can't shower. It's recommended that you don't shower in the same place.
Wow.
And so there's a whole thing that's happening. And depending on how long that chemo treatment is, depends on how long you're just in that cycle. So your life changes in an instant from, okay, we've got all these social engagements to do, to everything revolves around the chemo treatment and how that's going. And that's really important to honor that because we want you to get better. And so we're going to exist for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. And anyone who's journeyed through this can speak to that. Like the chemo rhythm is a real thing and families revolve around
And your point is not just for the patient, but for everyone involved.
When somebody in your family gets cancer, the whole family endures it. And that there's a truth to that statement that resonates with everyone who's had to endure that.
So how long was your dad's first season of cancer? How long did those rhythms go on for?
About, my mum will correct me on this, and I'm sorry, Mum, but that felt like that was a 2-year journey.
Okay.
And he was in remission for about 2 years before the cancer came back in a different place, and it was very aggressive.
Okay.
He went downhill rapidly. His oncologist was a complete prick and was obsessed with healing the cancer at the expense of killing him from a whole bunch of other stuff. So one of the things is that your oncologist is trying to heal you from cancer.
Sure.
He does not care so much about the congestive heart failure that was setting in and the liver failure and all the other functions that were failing.
Because of the cancer treatment.
Because of the cancer treatment.
Right.
So the cancer treatment was killing the cancer but also killing Dad.
Right.
So when I went up to see him at the start of September, he was in congestive heart failure and the cancer had reduced by 80%.
Right.
And our oncologist said to us, we've almost killed the cancer. And I'm like, yeah, and you've almost killed him. So what do we do? Now his heart, so you've got primary physician and then under that primary, so because he was in intensive care, there's the primary physician who's treating the cancer. That's the first guy. The second guy is your urgent care doctor who's just trying to keep him alive. And then we've also got his heart doctor, his cardiologist in the room, and all three of those, there's a hierarchy.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And
so one can pull rank. Sorry that his heart's no good, but
yeah,
my course of treatment is more important at this point.
So he's incoherent, and the oncologist is saying, if we keep doing this, we'll kill the cancer.
Yep.
His heart surgeon is saying he's in congestive heart failure. If we keep doing this, you'll kill him.
Yeah.
And our urgent care doctor is saying everything's failing right now. He's dying. Okay. So then you've got the cancer doctor saying, I can kill the cancer. And then you've got the two other doctors saying he's dying. So it's, I'm just going to give this an explicit warning, but it's a shit sandwich. And I'm just picking out which is the best shit sandwich to eat with my mum and with my sister, who are all emotional wrecks. And we've got to figure out the best solution to how he dies. Okay? So we then say, stop treating him for cancer.
Okay.
Which
you're allowed to do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, because we've now got power of attorney and enduring guardian and all of that. And so we say he's completely incoherent, he's on life support systems, and he's in heart failure. Put him into palliative care and let him die. So he then goes on a tirade about how he's going to die. First of all,
the oncologist.
The oncologist. Because
Right.
he's now pissed
He's not getting his way.
that he's not getting his way. And so this won't be that he cured cancer. This will sit on his permanent record
Right.
that he did not cure cancer for this person. So you're always trying to be like a 99% success rate, right? He's got a massive ego. I'm not saying his name, but total jerk. He then goes and explains to my mum and my sister and me about how he's going to die, which is brutal, and then storms out of the room. The two other doctors who now become the primary physicians apologize profusely for the behavior of this individual. So then we go on a journey of figuring out how to make him comfortable so he can pass away with dignity. And that process takes 2 weeks.
Okay.
And it's not pleasant because they basically just juice him up on morphine.
It's not an if anymore. It's a when.
Oh, it's a when, and it's soon.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks later, he passes away. My last memory of Dad is him in a hospital bed staring at a crucifix. So Jesus is on this particular cross because it's a Catholic hospital. We sing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and we leave. Mum prays with him. She comes home. When she comes home, she's told he's passed away. That's my experience of my dad departing. The experience with my uncle is slightly less unpleasant than that, but still that level of unpleasantness. And grandfather is a brutal story that I won't ever tell.
Sure.
So when I come to this topic, it is colored by experience.
Yep.
And what I struggle with is I feel like there needs to be an alternative to euthanasia, like an aginasia. Just hear me out. Is we have gotten so good with medical care, we can prolong the experience of life despite the level of participation or enjoyment the individual might have. So a person could be vegetative, comatose, in incredible pain.
Yep.
There is a way for medicine to allow you to endure through that. Whereas historically, you would die.
Okay.
Dad would have died 3 weeks earlier.
This
6 months earlier.
This is an interesting point, and again, just let me preface what I'm about to say by the fact that I don't have the lived experience you do.
No,
or
go
that
for
some
it.
of our listeners do. So I just want to
You're not going to make me cry on this episode, so you go for it.
look. The way that I wrote it in preparation was, and this is just a question that I'm wrestling with in this conversation.
Sure.
You know, there's this paradigm of playing God in the euthanasia debate.
Yep, absolutely.
How can we play God by limiting the days of a man? That is only something God can do.
How can you play God by extending the days of man?
That's exactly right. That was the question.
That would be my flip question.
So we play God. What I exactly wrote was we play God by extending lifespans with medicine. Isn't this being euthanasia the same thing but in reverse?
Yes, that's exactly the thing that I would say. And that's the thing that frustrates me.
And I don't know yet if that's a perfect logic, but it's just a question I've got.
Yep.
Okay, in that paradigm, what does that mean? When does one decide no longer to medicate and just, do you know what I mean?
Yes. So if I was to ever be diagnosed with cancer,
Yep.
I would not do the treatment. I would request a prescription for medical marijuana, and I would enjoy my family as long as humanly possible before the good Lord calls me home.
But don't you currently have that choice? Like if that happened to you today, you would be allowed to choose that.
Absolutely.
You're not forced to do treatment.
Absolutely.
So therefore, doesn't the reverse logic then fall down? Like, yes, we have medication to prolong, and yes, that may eliminate the need for euthanasia to well, not eliminate, but reduce. It doesn't work. The logic doesn't work because in both instances you have a choice.
But
It's about choice.
So for my father, there's a whole lot of overarching issues. So when you're in medical crisis,
Yeah.
the goal of the physician is to sustain that life for as long as possible, right? So you go into urgent care. Their goal is not to kill you; it's to save you.
Sure.
Okay, and you find yourself in these predicaments where what you are left with is a longer tail
Yep.
than I feel what is necessary
Yep.
for life.
And
if I had the choice, I'll say it explicitly.
Sure. Go for it.
If we had the choice to end our father's life 2 weeks earlier, we would have done that. But the opportunity was to put him on morphine, a boatload of it, and let him drift off into eternity. And that, if he did not have the morphine, would have been an incredibly painful and humiliating experience. And so what we did was we chose to gently let him drift off to eternity.
Because that was the only option you
That
were
was
left
the
with.
only option we had.
I've heard a similar thing said. We've got a mutual friend who went through something very similar with his dad. And just by way of a story that kind of highlights this. So it was election night, Australia's last federal election, which was last year. And we're all watching the election. And at some point or another in the political analysis, the conversation around euthanasia came up.
Yep.
And those of us in the room were, I think, all Christians from memory. And someone very lovely, and she didn't mean harm by it, just, oh, I can't believe, we're thinking about legalizing euthanasia.
Yep.
And my friend just very graciously and very gently said, look, I need you to know that I feel differently about this. And it was from the experience of seeing my dad really die without dignity.
Yep.
And the way he said it, and he was so gracious about it, but he just said, I'm not advocating for, all I'm advocating for is an option when it's clearly the writing is on the wall, that those just basically exactly what you just said.
Yep.
I'm not asking for a healthy 40-year-old to have the option. I'm asking for my dad, who really died badly, if I can put it this way,
Yes.
to not die badly.
Yes.
Now, again, I still don't even know if I agree with that, but it's, I'm speaking in theory here. But I guess what I'm saying is I've heard from Christian friends who are advocating for this, or at least open to the thought of it. The narrative that I'm hearing is just in that last little bit that is really quite undignified.
Yes.
Just some relief from that. So I think that's just important in the conversation that, dare I say, there are degrees of euthanasia, and I know people might even, or there's at least degrees to which you can apply the euthanasia laws.
Mm-hmm.
I would still say most Christians will say never, but I certainly have met a group who are adhering to what you're saying, particularly those who've been through it, to your point, that just let us end it that little bit earlier, because it's really not going well here.
Yeah. Listen, at some stage, you are going to have to face the conversation of two terrible options.
Sure.
And you will have to pick the better of the two terrible options. And right now, that is load you up with drugs so you don't experience any pain, and we'll pop you in a room and wrap you in cotton wool until you die. If you've heard the labored breathing of an individual who's going on that journey, it's the most harrowing sound. And your friend, I think I know the friend, will remember that sound.
Sure.
And it's probably triggering. We should have a trigger warning on this.
We can put one at the start. But you're making a different point, which is, or slightly, you're saying it's not just about the outcome and the process for the person who is dying, but it's for those who are left behind, who've gone through a trauma that perhaps they may not have had to go through.
Someone's going to call me out on this. I don't care. Have you ever had to put your dog down? Have you?
No.
Okay. So most people, when they put their dog down, they take it in, they leave it with the person and walk out.
Sure.
But if you talk to any veterinarian, they'll say that dog is looking around for a loved one that they know in the final moments of its life. Okay, so the dog knows what's going to happen. Dog's aware of it, but what we do is we drop it off and walk it out of the room. But those of us who love our dog, I say this, you can get pissed at me. You stay in that room, you hold that dog's paw, and you let the lady inject your dog, and you watch that dog drift off into eternity. That's what you should do, because that dog will stare you in the face and lovingly drift off to sleep. Sad moment. It's a hard moment, but it's an important moment. I feel like if I had had that opportunity with an incoherent dad, I would hold my dad's hand and I would gently let him drift off into eternity rather than endure the next 2 weeks. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a godly, loving Christian perspective for that isn't this hateful, you have no value or sanctity of life. No, actually I do. I have an incredible value and sanctity of life.
Yeah. Defend yourself in that.
And I'm saying that the life that he is enduring for the last few weeks is awful.
Yeah.
And there is a better way, and he is going to see a good king. And what you're saying is because medical care is so good right now, you should just let him endure that. And I'm saying I think that's rubbish.
I feel like the theoretical devil's advocate argument to that is, what if he could have come back?
He's not coming back. I'm telling you, like medicine these days are pretty switched on about it. We're not putting flipping maggots in wounds and figuring stuff out. You've got trained.
We know when we know.
And they're linked up to multi-million-dollar machines that they're saying he's on the way out.
Yeah.
Is in that moment, you can do it well.
That's
what I'm trying to say.
So the other counter, and the counter argument is the slippery slope argument. And I've heard, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there is a country, correct me if I'm wrong here, some listener, that if not, they have currently legalized euthanasia. They're contemplating legalizing euthanasia on mental health grounds.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
I'm not for that.
Right. So, but herein lies the argument. Well, if we give you that one, then you'll.
I'm not taking the next one. I'm taking that one.
But do you think as humans, we run the risk of this? This is what we always do when we get an inch, we run a mile.
Cool. Great argument.
Worry about it when we get there.
Sure. I mean, I feel like Australians are really good at doing this, is that we will decision a decision into the ground and never make a move on it because we're paralyzed by the potential that someone somewhere might want to take this further than it needs to go. Yes, you're probably right. Cool. I just feel like we're surrounded by death and we've just become aware that we can sanitize it.
Yep.
And we probably are far less comfortable with it than we should be, which is the death episode if you want to go listen to it.
Yeah.
But you eat meat. Hundreds of cows have sacrificed their life for you to stay alive, and lambs and pork and we go through all the different pigs and bulls that you've eaten. And
what's your point?
My point is that we're okay with it for everything except humanity, and our excuse is Jesus made us special. Yahweh made us special.
But I actually agree with that. There is something different about us made in God's image. If I'm hearing you right, I don't think you can parallel human life to non-human life.
And yet Yahweh runs the sword through Assyrians and Babylonians and just this.
So what I'm still struggling to hear your broader point.
Is that I think yes, there is a significance and importance to humanity and to life. I'm saying that because of the weight of medical care, we've got ourselves past a point where you would usually live to, and I wonder if that's unhealthy.
A friend of mine who works in public health told me once, I don't know if it's true, he said that 50% of all public health spending is on the final year of life.
Yeah.
And I could tell he was feeling a bit sheepish about saying it, because reading between the lines, what he was really saying is this the goal of what we're trying to achieve? The real sensitive part of that is you start talking about the economics of human life, which is like a really delicate topic. But just he was just making the point, it is a huge resource to keep people alive. He wasn't explicitly advocating for euthanasia, but he was saying, I think what he was trying to say was, is this the goal of our medical system or is it not?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just being real frank in this conversation, but if I'm 90, my wife's passed away and I'm bedridden and I'm never getting out of that bed again, I would love to hook up to the machine and join her in heaven. Just let me have the family in. I'll kiss them goodbye. It's 90. Flip, my son's probably 60. I don't want to spend any more time with him. Like, just give me a few years in heaven before he gets there. I guess those are the kind of conversations where I go, I'm not enjoying life in bed, having my bedpan changed. And
I really don't want to be a jerk here, but I just want to you've already started to go down the slip. The example you've just given is different from your dad's story. So you're already starting to extend the argument.
Yeah, and I think that your point of 50% of spending happening in that final year is a pretty healthy conversation. If we could just redirect $2 trillion somewhere else, what would that look like? And now I'm sounding like the death doctor.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about a 30-year-old human who's struggling with depression.
Yeah.
What if we were to take those $2 trillion and redirect that into
mental health
and physical well-being is that I think part of the issue we have is we've got a reactive medical care system.
Mm-hmm.
So, my neighbour's got a South Korean wife. When he goes over to South Korea, they do this proactive medical care. You go and see the doctor and physiologist, and your goal here is to fix stuff before.
It's like a rego check.
Totally. And so they do all these proactive healthcare. The fact that our healthcare system is going up and up and up in cost, and those additional benefits like like we used to get discounts for having gym memberships and massage treatments and chiropractic appointments. It's like, because now we're just working under a reactive medical care system, and what we should have is a proactive medical care system. You know what I would love to see is that money reinvested into everyone in Australia gets free gym membership.
Yep.
And so we put it on a proactive foot to make that the first 89 years excellent.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And that 90th year, where it really looks like it's sucking now, okay, let's have a serious conversation.
Yep.
Okay? And this is, by the way, I think we should have the other side of the coin on this.
What do you mean?
Just people angry at what I'm saying.
Sure. Yeah, look, okay, well...
I don't think it's a yes.
I'm not angry at you, but I think I disagree with you, but I'm also aware that I haven't got the lived experience of you.
But that doesn't mean that you can't have an opinion on it.
Thank you. Look, I think as I was thinking about it biblically, what's tricky is there's no passage on euthanasia, but in many ways that's lots of issues on life. There's no direct. So as I was thinking about, okay, what are the theological...
Yahweh euthanized the Babylonians.
That's another episode.
Euthanized the Assyrians.
That's another episode too.
All right, sure.
Maybe we should have the Yahweh killing people sub. Anyway, so Psalm 139 is probably the one that I went to most innately. So, for you, God created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. There's loads of famous words here. Fearfully and wonderfully made. My frame was not hidden you. So you knew me. You ordained my life. Here we go. Verse 16 of Psalm 139. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. So I suppose that's the easy biblical verse to go to counter the argument for euthanasia.
How does that counter it?
Well, because
doesn't that just delight in creation?
It's God who ordains the days, not us.
Right. But because of medicine, we can ordain them?
Okay, so there's the counter argument, right? Yeah. No, look, I think that's, as I was preparing for this episode, that is the biggest question that I wrestled with is what is the difference between euthanasia and life-prolonging medicine theologically?
Yeah.
Right? And I think... the other thing that I think is important to say here is what the heartache and the loadedness of this conversation shows on a higher level is just how painful and unnatural death is in a fallen world. Like, I just want to make that point that all of this shows, just to be really compassionate on everybody here, all of this shows yet again that this post-fall reality we live in is not what our hearts yearn for.
Yep.
And the pain that we feel here is just another example to show us that there is something more. This conversation makes us ache.
I hate this. I don't want to.
I know.
This.
And I can tell, like it's been hard for me to have the conversation with you because I feel like a jerk playing devil's advocate on all your arguments, you know?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
But it just pastorally, it just shows, it's just another thing to point us to the resurrection of Christ, I think, as the ultimate victory, and just to say death really hurts.
Yes.
In any form and in any sub-conversation within this. And the reason I say that is just this could be a really easy conversation in the public space and in the Christian space to be very self-righteous and very militant. And I think we need to avoid that because it's such a pastoral issue. Yes, there are going to be feelings. Yes, there are going to be opinions. But the reason those feelings and opinions exist in the first place is because we're facing the problem of death that we were never as humans meant to face in the first place. And so let's just be a little bit kind to ourselves as we express those opinions, is what I'm trying to say.
Agreed.
Yeah. Look, again, I think this is obviously triggering. It's heavy. We don't have all the answers, but I want to thank you for your honesty, for letting you ask my questions. Share your thoughts, please. And I just, again, processing this verbally, whatever you decide about this and wherever you're coming from, can I just encourage you to do it graciously, do it lovingly, and do it sensitively, because this is just a really hard topic that we will never have to navigate in the new creation. And I just look forward to that day.
You have to endure this creation to get the new creation.
Exactly.
All right. Are we wrapping up?
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you again next week. If you want to leave a comment, respectfully, you can jump on the Discord server. There's a new Discord server for the link for this week's episode. Mm-hmm. If you're not listening to this week's episode, go to this week's episode and grab that link, because it only lasts 7 days and I don't know how to change that because I'm an old man. Sorry.
Bye.
See ya.